So have you guys tried the new Invictus Parfum? I have. I'm actually quite a fan of it. I like the soapiness and the muskiness. But this video is not about Invictus Parfum. This video is about the total opposite, actually. This is my anti-hype fragrance list. Stick around for this one, guys. Hey, welcome back, everybody. So this is my anti-hype fragrance list. I'm going to bring you 9 fragrances that are virtually unknown. For the vast majority of you, these will be pretty new. You know, unless you follow my channel, I have done a review on pretty much every single one of these. But yeah, in the grand scheme of things, these get very, 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 very little recognition. But I assure you that if each one of these fragrances was released by a big name designer house, these would be best sellers. I think they're amazing, both in terms of quality and scent profile, yeah, but also performance. I went through my big collection here and I picked out ones that had great performance, that were just under the radar, and obviously ones that I find to be really amazing smelling. These fragrances are totally anti-hype. They do not get hyped at all, although I feel like they do deserve more hype because, as you'll find out later on in the video, each one of these is just a freaking awesome fragrance. And like I said, if they were released by a big name designer, these would be flying off the shelves. Every single YouTuber would be reviewing them left, right, and center. But yeah, that is not the case. So here I am bringing these to your attention. I know. You're welcome. No, please, no, please. My pleasure, eh? My pleasure. Without any further ado, let's get this list underway. Number 9 is going to be Molton Brown's Russian Leather Eau de Parfum, although nowadays it has a different name, Dark Leather Eau de Parfum. Same fragrance, smells the exact same, just the name has been changed for reasons. The main notes in this one are going to be geranium, birch tar, and cade oil. So really what this one is, to me, is an aromatic fougere with a twist. We get big time geranium, so it's very creamy and minty, reminds you of like a shaving cream. Also, we get birch tar, which can give off kind of a leathery characteristic. So this is more of a chypre fragrance as opposed to aromatic fougere. While there are definitely similarities between the two genres, the big difference is that chypres contain usually a hint of leather. Anyway, I'm not going to complicate this any more than I've just done, but yeah, let's say this is kind of like a chypre fragrance with a twist on it. So we get the minty geranium, we get the smoky birch tar, which also has a leathery characteristic to it as well, and we get some cade oil. It's going to give it a very piney, kind of like fir balsam smell. Altogether, creamy mint with a lot of smoke and definitely a big piney characteristic. I love this fragrance. It is very gentlemanly. It is very powerful, very strong. This exudes power and sophistication. And you know, it reminds me of my childhood in Nova Scotia, Canada, where we have lots of pine trees. It snows a lot there too, and it's very common to have bonfires in the woods. This just reminds me of being clean shaven in the woods in the wintertime next to a campfire. Absolutely stunning scent, which by the way has amazing performance. This one just does not get talked about, but it is one of the best fragrances you can get your hands on. If you're fans of, you know, aromatic fougères or chypres, this is the one for you. The next one on this list is going to be Falcon Leather. So the main notes in this one are going to be labdanum, birch tar, and benzoin. Oof, wonderful smell here. All in all, we're going to get a really smoky, kind of creamy, ambery fragrance with a little bit of a leather characteristic. Now, leather is actually not part of the official note breakdown. Instead, the leather accord that we get here is going to be coming from a mix of birch tar, labdanum. So it's going to give it a very smoky, leathery characteristic. This dries down to like a really smoky incense, but there's like a creamy, ambery sort of sweetness that's coming from the benzoin here. Vanillic, creamy, a little bit dusty, if you will. It's a stunning fragrance, and it could be a little bit challenging, I suppose, because up close, if you smell this right on your skin, you can detect some oud. It's a little bit of an animalic oud, but in the air, the sillage, you do not detect any of that oud whatsoever. And even like if you sprayed it on your neck and you're catching wafts of it yourself through the day, you don't really detect the oud. It's only when you press your nose up really close to your skin. Instead, what you're going to get is like a really leathery, smoky, ambery, kind of dusty, vanillic sillage going on. Now, this reminds me of, if I had to put it really simply, I feel like this could be like a niche version of the Stronger With You line. You know, take your pick out of that line. They all have some scent similarities between one another. This one here, I feel like, you know, keeps that ambery, vanillic characteristic that pretty much every member of that line has, and it adds noticeably bold, smoky leather. But yeah, I get kind of Strong With You vibes at certain points throughout the lifespan of this fragrance here. Falcon Leather by Matiere. Don't sleep on it. Next one here is going to be Ask by Maiora. So this is from a relatively new fragrance house, Maiora. This house is virtually unknown outside of Europe, and even here within Europe, it is, you know, pretty under the radar. It gets next to no visibility, but I have a feeling that this is going to absolutely take the world by storm because it's one of the best aquatic fragrances I've ever smelled in my life. So the main notes in this one are going to be driftwood, salt, sandalwood, and pine. So all of those notes are going to be laying on top of an oceanic blue style base, which I'm pretty sure is coming from amberwood. It's not listed in the official note breakdown or anything, but I definitely get some amberwood, which is that note that's responsible for the oceanic blue characteristic of a lot of aquatic fragrances out there. Think of, I don't know, Invictus, Dylan Blue. Those have those characteristic amberwood touches. Definitely get that one in this, only the amberwood is toned down, and we get a lot of woodiness and some pine coming out of this one. So the driftwood is going to give it a really dry, woody characteristic. There's a lot of sea salt in this one as well. There's a creamy sandalwood that allows this to go softer and creamier throughout the dry down. Also reminds me a little bit of the smell of sunscreen in the dry down tube. And finally, there's a pine accord as well. So really, this makes me think of walking through the forest, you know, in some Mediterranean country. I'm walking through the forest and I eventually get to the beach. I'm swimming in the beach, and at the end of the day, I get out of the water, and the smell that's left over on my skin, you know, salty, sunscreen, aquatic, with the smell of pine trees wafting in. That is what is encapsulated in this fragrance. It is so realistic. Man, this has some really good performance. I'm very surprised with this one. But yeah, this is a totally almost unknown fragrance house. And this one here from the brand itself is not even one of their more well-known ones. So consider this one like not just a hidden gem, but it's like buried and it's just totally not exposed to humans. Anyway, I'm exaggerating there a little bit. But awesome aquatic fragrance, Ask by Maiora. Next one is going to be Vetiver Patchouli by Montale, my personal favorite fragrance of all time. Main notes in this one are going to be vetiver, patchouli, and carrot seeds. So yeah, what can I say about this fragrance that I haven't said already a million times? I feature this in almost all of my list videos that pertain to like favorites or hidden gems, because it is my favorite, and I think it is quite a hidden gem. Grassy, woody vetiver with some earthy, kind of soily patchouli, maybe giving a touch of sweetness as well, on top of a bed of carrot seeds, which are going to give a very watery, vegetal feel to this fragrance. It's not like it's the most unique fragrance, but it does what it does very well. It's classic, but it's not dated at all. I feel like there even might be some younger guys who would enjoy this one. Man, so good. It's ultra versatile, but it has depth to it. It's not a boring fragrance at all. If you're fans of, like, I don't know, Terre d'Hermès, for example, but you want something a little bit more three-dimensional, this is going to be one that you're going to want to check out. I'm not saying it smells the same as Terre d'Hermès, but there are some similarities, absolutely. Although I think this is the better fragrance, the much better fragrance. Vetiver Patchouli by Montale. This one doesn't get as much attention as it deserves. The next one on this list is going to be New York Intense by Nicolai. So this one here is on this list to replace another one that is a little bit more well known, That particular fragrance is Dior Eau Sauvage Parfum 2017. This one smells a lot like that one, but I'm including this one because it has its own unique identity, and it is not nearly as well known as Dior Eau Sauvage Parfum 2017, even though that one isn't like the most popular one out there either. Anyway, main notes in this one are going to be citron, cloves, musk, and vanilla. So we definitely get that citron opening, same as Dior Eau Sauvage. There's definitely a resinous characteristic in this one as well. But where this differs is the inclusion of cloves. So there's a clove note in this one. This one also has a lot of musk in it, and it dries down, I think, you know, a little bit sweeter than the Eau Sauvage as well. This has some vanilla in it. There's no incense in this one. I know the Eau Sauvage Parfum has incense. None in here. But I think this is equally as interesting because it has that clove note. Really, really, really classic smelling fragrance here. In fact, I would say that this does smell a little bit dated, especially because of that musk. The musk is going to give it a little bit of a powdery characteristic. So this is for the refined gentleman, absolutely. But if you're fans of aromatic fragrances like I said, Eau Sauvage Parfum, you're going to really, really enjoy this one. And, you know, some people can detect a little bit of civet in the dry down. I guess I can if I smell it like right off my skin. I don't think the civet is very prominent, but it might be there in the background just hanging out, not making itself very apparent or anything. And to round it all off, there's some sort of soapy characteristic coming from this. But yeah, it's a very old-fashioned style fragrance. Anyway, this is not one for the younger guys. This is one for, like I said, a refined gentleman who wants to smell just classy and powerful. This is one for that person. Next one on this list is going to be Encelade by Marc Antoine Barrois. Main notes in this one are going to be rhubarb, vetiver, and vanilla. So yeah, we're going to get a really interesting note of rhubarb. So it's going to be a very tart, green fruitiness mixed with a smoky, grassy vetiver and a creamy, sweet vanilla in the dry down. The inspiration behind this fragrance, Marc Antoine himself and Quentin Biche teamed up and got inspired by Encelade, which is one of Saturn's moons. So yeah, Encelade is famous because it has ice volcanoes and an ice ocean. Really interesting stuff, but they actually designed this fragrance to smell like a jungle on the slope of a volcano. I'm not really sure what the connections are there, but anyway, it's an artistic piece here. This is very abstract, very different. I think it smells great, but you know, it's unique. It might be just a little bit too unique for some people because of that rhubarb note. And on top of that, the performance is bonkers. This is a very strong fragrance here. Something I would be cautious of if I knew that I had to be in a close quarter situation with somebody or with several people. I would say this is more of an outdoor fragrance, but hey, to each their own, right? Now, this definitely has that Quentin Biche tinge to it, you know, like a spicy fruitiness that exists in, I don't know, for example, the Kenzo Homme line, which Quentin Biche also designed. You get that characteristic Quentin Biche DNA, right? The fruity kind of spiciness. But anyway, you get some similarities, I guess, in terms of what the fragrance is trying to accomplish. Not necessarily the actual note profile, because they don't smell the same, but I think they're trying to accomplish similar things. You know, the Kenzo Homme line, for example, reminds me of a tropical rainforest next to a beach. This one here, I can kind of understand what they were going for when they designed this to make it smell like a jungle on the side of a volcano. I can picture a volcano erupting, a lot of smoke, and just like a really damp, humid, hot jungle. Maybe it's just been raining or something. If I really kind of use my imagination, I can allow this fragrance to transport me to that place, sure. But anyway, this is an abstract fragrance here. This is for lovers of perfumery. I think it's just amazing. You should check this one out if you want something different. Next one, Patchouli Kozha by Nishane. The main notes in this one are going to be patchouli, honey, leather, and incense. This one here, one of the best fragrance discoveries I have ever made. It's one of my favorites, especially for colder weather. You get some really sweet, earthy patchouli mixed with some very boozy honey. The opening to this one almost reminds me of like an earthy honey Jack Daniels. And that is lying on a bed of nice, dark, but not animalic leather. and some smoky but also resinous incense. This one here, very dark, but it's so sensual. There's something so alluring about this one, even though it's a little bit different. It's a little bit out there. I wouldn't call it challenging, but for some people, this might stop just short of being a challenging fragrance, notably because of that boozy note. It's a very boozy, heavy fragrance, especially in the beginning, although that goes dying down, but then there's a little bit of smoky incense in the bottom. Point I'm trying to make is it's not what a lot of people would consider to be traditionally challenging. Like there's no oud, there's nothing animalic in this. It's different. It's very unique. It has its own, DNA. It has its own identity. And I absolutely love that identity. This is, like I said, one of my favorite fragrances. It's supposed to be inspired by the leather manufacturing industry in Russia. If you can see here, Moskva is the city on the bottom part of this bottle here. Each Nishane fragrance is inspired by a different city worldwide. Yeah, I go more in depth about that in my review of this one here. I'm going to post a link to that up above. It's on the sweet side, yes, but if you want something that's just so far from being juvenile and just very unique, get this one. You're going to love it for the cooler weather. Patchouli Kozha by Nishane. Next one on this list, Amouroud's Santal des Indes. In my opinion, this is one of the best incense sandalwood fragrances out there, and it gets like virtually no visibility. I don't understand it. Anyway, the main notes in this one are going to be wormwood, sandalwood, incense, and curry leaf. Right off the bat, we get a big blast of wormwood, so it's going to be a little bit absinthe, a little bit licoricey, but I don't find it overly boozy. It's kind of like a little bit of a hint of absinthe in the beginning, but yeah, we definitely get the licorice characteristics of that, and that's coming from wormwood. It dries down into a beautifully milky sandalwood mixed with some curry leaf, which is going to give it a really interesting kind of spicy background. But the main player in the dry down is that incense. It's a very smoky, very incensey fragrance in the dry down, and for that reason, the name Santal des Indes could be a little bit misleading. Because, yeah, there definitely is some sandalwood in this. I think the main player is definitely that incense. Anyway, this is an amazing fragrance to the point where I'm just stupefied that there is not more visibility surrounding this fragrance. It's very similar to Idole de Luban, which is another very sought-after niche fragrance here in the fragrance community. This one performs better. It doesn't smell the exact same. It is very similar. This one, man, if you're a fan of sandalwood and incense especially, this is one you just cannot be sleeping on. Check this one out. Santal des Indes by Amouroud. Last but not least, this is going to be Noble Wood by St. DuPont. Main notes in this one are going to be dried fruits, cognac, and amber. But yeah, the star of the show here is definitely amber. It's a little bit misleading. The name is Noble Wood. I don't really get much wood in this at all. Although if I really try hard, I guess I can kind of detect a little bit of sandalwood, but it's not even overly woody. It's kind of just, I don't know, creaminess that sandalwood can give off sometimes. But yeah, this is not a woody fragrance. That's the point I'm trying to make. This is all about the amber. Man, this fragrance does amber so well. I like that the amber is definitely very sweet. It's a very prominent amber, but it never goes like cloying or syrupy or anything. You get so many fragrances that include like really just syrupy, overly sweet ambery notes that are kind of just sweet just for the sake of being sweet. They don't really add any subtle nuances or any, depth to the fragrance. The amber in this one is just done very well. If you're an amber fan, you should definitely check this one out. Out of all the fragrances on this list, by the way, this probably garners the highest amount of compliments. People love this one. This leaves such a sexy, alluring sillage when you're wearing this, especially in the colder weather. This is a head turner. You're going to get people asking what you're wearing. But yeah, on top of that, it's just such a well done fragrance. If you're an amber fan, you really like each dimension of the amber coming from the benzoin, the labdanum, the vanilla, etc. You're going to get all of those characteristics. You're going to get all of those facets in this one. The only thing is this fragrance is extremely hard to find nowadays. It has been discontinued. It's been discontinued for quite a while. Yeah, but I'm sure if you look hard enough on eBay or Wallapop here in Western Europe, you can find some, although it might be a little bit difficult. However, I recommend that if you do find a bottle of this one from a trusted seller, always, of course, pick this one up. If you're a fan of ambery fragrances for colder weather, it has its own identity and it does what it does very well. Also, the performance is just stupidly strong on this one. So if that's something that matters to you, yeah, this isn't going to be one to pass up. So anyway, guys, that's been my list of 9 anti-hype fragrances. Fragrances that I think are just so good, but they're so unknown. Even so, I feel like if they were released by big-time designer houses, they would fly off the shelves. They would be best sellers. Alas, that is not the case, and I have just brought all of them to your attention. Hope you've enjoyed my list, guys. What are your anti-hype fragrances? What are your fragrances that you just love so much, you think are so amazing, but are relatively unknown or totally unknown? Drop some stuff in the comments for me below, guys. Anyway, until next time, keep it real.